Good evening, and I hope you are keeping safe, wearing your mask, of course, and washing your hands, sanitizing where necessary. Thank you so much for joining. This is The Day. My name is Sarah Otieno.
And I'm Frederick Njiri.
Thank you so much for tuning in. Today we're live on Family TV, also live on Family Radio. What are we looking at today, Fred?
Well, President Uhuru Kenyatta has sent a message to his Tanzanian counterpart, John Magufuli, over the border tiff after the president closed the border on Saturday. And quite a number of people are actually ignoring calls coming from the mobile loan providers. And so we'll be talking to a debt expert. His name is Roy Okonje, who's going to tell us how you can be able to deal with your debts during this period so that you don't get into trouble once we are back to normalcy.
The WhatsApp number that you can use and contact us from is 0786 316 316, SMS line 20316, on Facebook and Twitter at Family Radio 316. Remember, we are live in Meru at 107.7 and also in Nyeri at 87.9. So if you know anyone in these regions, it is just okay and just to tell them to tune into Family Radio 316.
Well, let's start with the drama along the Kenyan-Tanzanian border, as today President Uhuru Kenyatta has sent a brotherly message to his Tanzanian counterpart, John Magufuli, calling for a cessation of hostilities at the border over the COVID-19 protocols. In his message sent through the Kenyan ambassador to Tanzania, Dan Kazungu, the president said he considers Tanzania as brothers and not just neighbors. He called for the two countries to work together to fight the virus which threatens the peoples of the two countries. On Monday, Tanga Regional Commissioner Martin Shigela directed that no Kenyan trucks be allowed through the Tanzanian border.
Rais Magufuli mwenye jina ambalo angeweza kutupiga loko kila mahara ametuachia tuko huru. Alafu wale wenye majina yanayofanana na freedom amewapiga makufuri. Kitu hichi ni cha ajabu sana. Kuanzia leo, yani kuanzia sasa, wala sio kuanzia leo, kuanzia sasa muda huu, kama kuna gari inatoka upande wa Kenya imebeba shehena, imebeba mzigo, inaleta Tanzania, kuanzia leo ni marufuku. Kwa sababu hatuwezi kuwa na bidhaa na Watanzania wanakaa hapa zaidi ya wiki nzima halafu wanatangazwa kwamba wana corona. Na tangu nimekuja hapa Ijumaa niliagiza sekta ya afya ipime baadhi ya watu wanaotokea Kenya. Kati ya watu waliopimwa, zaidi ya wasafiri wanaotokea Kenya, wa Kenya, zaidi ya 19 wana corona. Sasa hatuwezi kusisi turuhusu waendelee kutoka Kenya na corona zao waingize ndani ya nchi yetu. Hatuwezi kuendelea kuruhusu wagonjwa kutoka Kenya wanakuja na magonjwa ya corona, wanatumia uhuru wetu ambao tumeujenga, wanatumia uhuru wetu ambao tumeutengeneza, wanatumia nafasi ambayo rais ameijenga kwa kuwapa uhuru wa Tanzania, wanatuletea magonjwa ya corona.
You see, on Saturday, President Uhuru Kenyatta ordered that the Kenya-Tanzania and the Somali borders be closed since the two countries were slowly becoming COVID-19 hotspots.
Well, meanwhile, 15 Tanzanian nationals were arrested in Hispania, that is in Migori County, after illegally crossing the border. And a further 35 Tanzanian border operators were arrested in the area after being caught without any legal documentation.
Mikata natoka Tanzania, tulikuwa na gari, tulienda kuweka mafuta hapo Sheli, lakini wakati tunapita hapa kwenda nyumbani ndio gari yetu kaa imejizima. Tumefika pale mbele, basi tukaja tukapita hapa kwenda kutafuta fundi hapo chini huwa anatutengenezea gari.
Nilikuja hapa nikaona hapa watu wanapita, sasa mimi nikazani labda watu wanaruhusiwa kwenda hapo Kenya. Sasa mimi nikaja nikaona nataka nipite.
Sasa kulingana na movement iliyokuwepo hapo, watu walikuwa wanaingia, wengine wanatoka, ikabidi na sisi tuingie ili tutafute fundi ili tutoe pale barabarani.
Kwa Migori County mpaka sasa hivi tungekuwa hatujarekodi kisa hata kimoja, kwa sababu mkaaji wa Kuria aliyekaa kule hapa hajawahi patikana na ugonjwa, ila waliotokea Tanzania ndio wamepatikana.
Ila sasa tunaonelea kama upande wa pili wa Tanzania hasa njia za chocho ndizo wanaingilia sana, ila tunashukuru sasa hivi serikali kwa sababu imechukua mkondo tahadhari kabisa kuzuia kudhibiti wa Tanzania kutovuka Kenya.
Tunavyokatazwa kwenda Tanzania ndio ni sawa, lakini hata sisi hapa Tanzania ndio tunapata msaada kidogo kama wa chakula nini, mchele nini. Haya, tukidhibitiwa hivyo, misaada inatoka sehemu zingine zinapeanwa, lakini hapa Kuria misaada haijawahi fika hata siku moja.
Well, you know what, Fred? It's interesting because only Kenyan truck drivers are not allowed into the Tanzanian soil. That means if you are a Rwandese, a Cameroonian, or even going towards Tanzania to other countries, you are allowed, but only Kenyan drivers are not allowed. So this maybe could be a big beef between the two nations.
Actually, it might end up that way, but it's very unfortunate. You know, when this first happened, you know, as a Kenyan, you get angry and all that. But then after a while, you think the whole COVID thing is causing a lot of divisions between the countries. You have the USA and China, and now we have Kenya and TZ. It's everybody trying to protect their own people. It's understandable, and maybe this just a but it will pass. I hope we are going to handle it right, and I like what has been done now. Message to cool down the tempers. Yeah, and it brings us to a very interesting question, because truck drivers from the Kenyan side were actually asking the president to reconsider his decision. And maybe that's a question that we need to ask. Should the president reconsider his decision of closing the border between Kenya and TZ to save the relations? Yes.
The WhatsApp number that you can use and tell us whether you think the president should reconsider this decision. 0786 316 316, SMS line 20316.
And it's not just there. Motorists or matatu public service vehicles are supposed to be enjoying the low prices in as far as fuel is concerned. But the trend is completely opposite, because the PSV owners, both, as I said, matatus, boda bodas and the rest, they're complaining, though the fuel is cheap, the people, they're not benefiting because there's virtually no one to transport. So that's where the problem is. Yes.
They are not feeling any impact because, yes, the price of the fuel has been lowered, yes, but there is no job. You see, so even if we fill our full tanks, there is nowhere we are going to work with it. There are no people to be carried on the streets.
I carry people from one place to another, and with the lockdown and the government precautions, people are now scared of motorbike as a sector of transport because they feel we are more vulnerable than any other transport sector, and they don't want to use motorbike as a means of transport. And few customers there, so there's no really big impact.
Motorists are not working, and because now we are not working, automatically government is losing the tax. They are not going to collect tax as they used to collect before.
You know, it's interesting because at first we all really wanted the fuel prices to go down. And now that they are low, still people are not making any profits. But anyway, let's wait and see how that goes along. Jared Otieno, and if you are a Gor Mahia fan, then you know the name Jaro Soja. He is a renowned super fan of record Kenyan League winners Gor Mahia FC, and now the coronavirus pandemic has robbed the self-proclaimed commander of the Green Army, what they call the Green Army, his favorite sport. But during this lockdown, Mr. Otieno has found a business opportunity. He's making masks.
My life is Gor Mahia. Everything for me revolves around football. I always think about my club. I always look forward to match days. I always attend Gor Mahia training. So you can imagine how I've been affected. Being deprived of all these things makes me feel like I'm in prison. For me, anything away has to have Gor Mahia colors. And of course, when I designed my mask, I consulted my friends who are doctors. So when I started wearing this mask, many Gor Mahia fans loved it and started asking whether I could make more. Most importantly, it has to meet the health standards required. It's not only about looking good, we are trying to avoid getting sick. So as you can see, you're making more today. All must have 1, 2, 3. Each mask must have 3 layers, as per what doctors have advised. As Gor Mahia's #1 fan, I have to lead by example. I have decided that Gor Mahia should benefit from this too. So for every mask I sell, 10% of the money will go to the player's kitty.
You know, one of them, you should have seen your face when you were talking about Gor Mahia. I mean, you went on like a neon sign. You know what I'm saying?
I feel like it's a default setting. Being a Luo, you're just a Gor Mahia fan by mistake, by chance. I don't know how to call it. But yes, Jaro Soja is making some really good masks during this time of the pandemic.
True. They say in every dark cloud there's a silver lining, and there are quite a number of people who are now focusing on the silver lining instead of the dark cloud.
Yeah.
And people are coming out in a positive way, which is very nice. I believe once we are done with this, we will see some things that we have never seen, simply because people are focusing on the silver lining. And talking about that, I just spoke to somebody who was using Mombasa Road. If you're heading towards Mombasa Road, I'm made to understand there's a traffic jam from where I don't know, because majority of people probably haven't gone back to work. But I think people are rushing back home to try and beat the curfew. And let's remind you again, please, whatever you do, have your mask on.
Yeah.
Have your mask on, because the police are doing their thing.
Thank you so much for tuning in to This Is the Day. We have some guys who've responded to whether the president should reconsider his call to close the Tanzania-Kenya border and also the Kenya-Somali border. Well, we have Vincent Mulinge from Thika here, and he's saying, COVID-19 has been with us for some time, and the problem we are experiencing at the Kenya-Tanzania border is a clear indication that our leaders have never been prepared adequately to handle the disaster. We also have Joseph from Kiserian tuned into This Is the Day as usual. Thank you so much, Joseph. And you're saying, I think having a common ground with our neighbor is one thing that Jesus advocated and taught about. Though our TZ counterpart have a very different view on the pandemic, the two leaders should reconcile their differences for the interest of their people. And he goes ahead to say this. After all, ndume wawili wakipigana, nyasi huumia. It's a time for cohesion and illusion. Dennis from Juja is still waiting for a positive story from Muranga. That is after we carried the story yesterday.
I promise I will look for a positive story from Muranga. The drinking of sanitizers was a shocker for the people where my parents come from.
Well,
it's sad.
God
help us.
Dennis, well, you can also tell us your views on whether the president should be a bit relaxed when it comes to the restriction of movement in the Kenya-Tanzania border. 0786 316 316. That is on WhatsApp, SMS line 20316.
Meanwhile, the Health CS Mutai Kagwe now says that they have tested over 46,000 people in the country, with 963 testing positive. 51 more people tested positive in the last 24 hours. Men are leading the numbers with 62%, while women have recorded around 38%.
Figure there, 46,794 samples. The positive cases so far are at heading towards the 1,000 figure. And the active cases we have, because we have recovered 358, and therefore the active cases, the cases of the persons who are still within our care, is 555. Now you must remember again that we are glad that out of those 555 cases, we actually do not have anybody who is symptomatic as such. We have nobody on ventilator, and we have nobody on oxygen.
Well, out of the 214 that were tested in the Kenyan borders, that is across the country, 184 people were foreigners, according to the Health Ministry. And the CS added that the mobile laboratories will be put in the Namanga and Naivasha depot, where testing of truck drivers is being done.
All these places, we have moved PPEs in all these places so that we do not have situations where our people are exposed. We are deploying. We have got 2 mobile laboratories coming from the EAC, and we have deployed 1 mobile lab in Namanga so that we can be able to be testing from there, and we are going to deploy another one in Naivasha, the new center now where the trucks are coming, so that in the event that somebody has not been tested, we can test from there, remembering that that's not the protocol. They are supposed to be tested before they get there. If you look at Isebania, we have got our own cases, as in 10 cases, but we have returned 4 persons towards the Tanzanian border. On the Lunga side, you notice that we had only 3 cases, but we have returned 24 truck drivers on the Tanzanian side. If you look at Namanga again, I read that we have got 16 cases in Namanga, in Kajiado essentially. Loitoktok, we have 1 case, but we have returned 5 to the Tanzanian side. The same case, look at this. This here is 16 cases in Kenya, but we have returned 126 drivers who tested positive when we tested them across the border. They tested positive and therefore could not enter the country.
Well, according to the reports, Mombasa is leading in the number of deaths, which the CS blames on the failure to visit hospitals when symptoms present.
Nairobi had almost 100 more cases than Mombasa. But look at the number of deaths. Mombasa has more deaths than Nairobi. This is why we have been explaining that people must not be kept at home. You must leave your house. If you die at home, what it means is that the rate of infection and the rate of mortality is going to be a lot higher than had the person been infected by somebody who is almost asymptomatic. So I think we should make it clear that the rise in deaths here in Mombasa is essentially people dying at home. And we want to urge that nobody, if a person is unwell, please take them to hospital. Because if they are unwell and you are the one who is looking after them, chances are that you can yourself die and pass on.
Well, Fred, it's interesting because as the CS said, 62% of men have the virus and only 38% of women have been exposed to this virus.
Now,
what could be the reason?
We did, me and Jadiel did some research around.
Yeah.
As a couple of men, we wanted to find out why this is so. And we've discovered that men don't necessarily wash their hands every time they are required to wash their hands. And they're very careless. We constantly touch our faces, even before we wash our hands. And we put on our mask when we see the police. So it's behavior, literally. Yeah, it's behavior, I think. Unless the researchers can come up with some evidence to show that biologically we are more susceptible to the disease than women are.
Well, and you know what? It's interesting because Jam 316 will be doing a show on this. So make sure you tune in. I think it will be on Friday or Thursday. I will confirm the dates and give them to you tomorrow. Make sure you tune in and know the reason why we have so many cases of men being affected with the COVID-19 than women. For now, no matter where you live in the country, there is a good chance that the coronavirus pandemic has affected your finances in one way or another. Now, according to an April 2020 study by the credit reporting agency by the name TransUnion, 61% of the people have been financially impacted by the global health crisis. The average affected consumer anticipates that he or she is just a little over 6 weeks away from not being able to pay bills or their loans. Now, so how can we manage our loans and debt during this time of the pandemic? We talked to Roy Okonji, who is a debt specialist, and he had this to say about advising on the way to go. Roy, thank you so much for joining the discussion today, and kindly just start by telling us, is it okay right now to borrow money during this pandemic?
Wow. It's a good question. Thank you for having me. It's a good question. I think the key elements of the question is what we are borrowing for. And for many people, there will be the need to borrow for consumption, right? The need to borrow to survive.
Yeah.
And let me begin by saying that the ideal situation would have been that we had prepared a safety nest before, and that would be our fallback plan at a time like this. That is the ideal situation. But now, unfortunately, many people were caught off guard, and therefore there is need for them to survive. And then borrowing comes to mind as one of the options through which they will survive.
Yeah.
Therefore, be that as it may, let us now address the lesser evil. Okay? For those who may want to borrow to survive, because again, you will not sit and starve if there is someone who can lend you something to eat. So allow me to say a few things to those who may get the need to borrow to survive, to borrow for consumption in this special season, because indeed the season is so special, and therefore it calls for unique approaches.
Yeah.
So for anyone who might need to borrow for survival, first of all, they have to remember that borrowing for consumption is dangerous. It's actually bad debt, because it is not adding any value to them financially. It's actually coming to drain them. And then again, borrowing for consumption is something that can easily create a cycle that is difficult to break.
Yeah.
Because when you borrow to buy unga today, the urge for unga is a continuous urge. Therefore, tomorrow you might still feel hungry and need to borrow again. But now, so what are some of the things then that they might consider as they go into such borrowing? So we are saying we may not say no or yes absolutely, but it's important to mention that it is bad debt to borrow for consumption, because then it begins to set you up burning your fingers. But as you do it, there are a few things you can consider to lessen the impact.
Yeah.
That's why I'm calling this conversation the lesser evil. Now, number one, it is important to remember to borrow exactly what they need. There is going to be a temptation for people to go into panic borrowing.
Yeah.
Right? Because no one knows for how long the COVID situation is going to be with us. And there might be some people who might start rushing into borrowing from all platforms so that they can amass as much money as possible for them to at least stay knowing that they have something in their pocket. So I want to caution against that, because the reality of debt is that debt is not free money. That while they do that, repayment day is going to come.
Yeah.
And as you borrow, because for many people during the time of borrowing, when they are borrowing while in panic, they forget that this is debt and a time is going to come when repayment will be needed. So people must remember that a day to repay will surely come, and it will also depend on them. And that might begin to create a lot of other pressures that were not thought about in the beginning.
Yeah.
So borrow exactly what you need. Sit down and ask yourself, what do I need? If I must borrow, is it food? What kind of food do I need? So do your list and go straight to the point of exactly how much you need. Don't borrow just because you qualify.
Okay.
Don't borrow just because there is a willing lender. Borrow because that is what you need. The next thing I must mention is that for those who will be borrowing for that reason, then they have to be cost conscious. I like saying that cheap is expensive except debt.
Okay.
If you have to borrow, then always go for the cheapest. Because the cost of borrowing comes to weaken your financial muscle. Right? So if you must borrow to buy unga, you must borrow to survive or to do one or two things in this COVID season, be sure to consider the cost of your borrowing.
Okay.
Right? So don't just jump into it, because some people will surely jump into it. Some people will surely visit those Shylock dens and borrow seriously expensively. And at the end of the day, when repayment day comes, then the reality dawns that actually they did something that was dangerous. Another thing that people must consider as they borrow, for those who will borrow in this season, is to consider the impact of the proposed borrowing.
Okay.
Very few people do consider this. By this I mean the proposed debt. If you're proposing to borrow 10,000 or whatever amount, the repayment amount for the proposed debt, what was it doing in your budget prior to the borrowing?
But in this sense, we are talking about the interest and the money that we are paying on top of what we borrowed.
Not really the money we pay on top, the installment.
Okay.
Right? Because when you borrow and they tell you to repay at 5K per month or 10K per month, for instance, people fail to ask themselves, what was the 10K doing in my budget? All right?
Okay.
And when the day for repayment comes, you will repay the installment only to remember that your budget is running short, perhaps on the account of the landlord. Maybe the 10K was what you were using to pay rent. You must consider the impact of the proposed borrowing, ask themselves what the repayment money was doing in their budget prior to the borrowing, because that then will help. The reason why this must be considered is so that you ask yourself, if my budget does not have this repayment amount, what can I shake in my budget? What can I squeeze? What can I omit? What can I remove? What can I reduce in my budget so that I get the money I will use to repay the debt?
All right.
If you don't have the money, perhaps you ask yourself, then do I need to wait until my income increases so that then I can borrow? Right? So those are some of the considerations.
All right. I get you clearly. And what about someone who is already in debt right now? How do they carry themselves along to make sure that maybe they pay or do some explanation if they fail to pay?
Exactly. Now, for people who are already in debt, there is already a concern for them because lenders will be looking for their money. And on the other hand, you do not have the money to repay. Some people are operating on half income now. Some people perhaps do not have income completely.
Yeah, sure.
Because of what the situation has brought to us. Therefore, this is what I want to say to such people, just as tips on how to survive if you already had borrowed. Number one is that I want to encourage people to take stock of their indebtedness. Get to have a list of everyone you owe, so that then as you develop a way forward, you are not leaving some people out.
Okay.
This is something that people rarely do, but it's a homework I want to encourage our viewers to undertake, to just do a list of everyone they owe, so that then as they plan on how to approach the entire debt issue, then they have a bigger, the full picture in view. What want to do is the natural thing for the average person to do is to run away from the lender. Yes, and a lot of times the lender is calling and we want to hide, we want to avoid picking the calls, we want to switch off our phones.
Yeah.
The psychology of lending is such that every lender is comfortable when they know that you have their interests at heart.
Yeah.
Whether the situation is thick or the situation is thin. Therefore, at a time like this, it is important to reach out to all your lenders and then explain to them your current situation. I must caution here, as you reach out to them, do not overpromise.
Yeah.
Do not be in a hurry to give promises you cannot fulfill. Don't tell them you will give them money next week, Tuesday, when you and I know that you have no income you're expecting between now and Tuesday.
Okay.
So be clear enough to them. Tell them you still have the interest of repaying the loan. Realities are like this, and look forward and looks like today.
Okay.
The other thing you will do as you reach out to them is to renegotiate the terms of the debt.
So if you were supposed to pay this in a span of 1 year, then you can renegotiate in such a way that the time span is increased a little bit so that you're comfortable and he's comfortable too, if I'm getting you right.
Exactly. As you go to renegotiate, you must know why you want to renegotiate or which element of the loan you want to renegotiate.
Yeah.
You must know that upfront, because if you call the lender and you have not decided on what you want to renegotiate, the lender will be pulling on their direction, in their direction.
Yeah.
So you have to be clear. Now, these are some of the things you might renegotiate. You might renegotiate on the term, the duration of the loan. As you have mentioned, if you were remaining with 1 year, perhaps you could renegotiate for it to be stretched a bit. The end effect of the same is to have a reduced repayment amount.
Okay.
Maybe you are repaying at 10K and your income has reduced. Perhaps you are only comfortable paying 5,000 now. Therefore, you renegotiate such that then they begin to expect a lower amount from you. Another thing you can also renegotiate is to renegotiate the frequency of repayment.
Okay.
Maybe you used to earn money weekly or monthly, but now you only get money once in 2 months.
Yeah.
So it's good to come out clean and tell your lenders that these days you no longer receive money weekly or monthly, you receive money after two months or after 3 months, so that then they can adjust their expectations from weekly or monthly to your new repayment frequency.
All right, so if I'm
you may
getting
also
you...
renegotiate on cost.
Sorry, carry on.
You may renegotiate on costs, depending on where you borrowed your loan and how long you've borrowed. You could renegotiate that they stop charging interest in this special season, and perhaps you pick it up after the season is over. All right. You could also renegotiate about restructuring your debt entirely, so that perhaps if it was already in arrears, then they find ways of elongating the term to clear the arrears, so that then your account continues to be clean.
All right. Well, if I'm getting you right, and from whatever I have picked that you have explained and told us, it's a matter of just being open and honest with your borrower.
Yes, important, with your lender.
And before I let you go, maybe, how can we manage our finances during this time to avoid borrowing and also to avoid financial strain?
Good question. Now, this is a special time, and in special moments such as this, we have to remember that we must become conservative.
Yeah.
It is no longer business as usual. And therefore, we cannot continue spending money the way we used to do when things were normal. Whether you are still on full pay or 50% pay, whatever the situation, this is the time to become conservative. That means that you spend your money only on those things that are necessary to cushion you during this season.
Yeah.
This is a season where priority is on survival. So we switch modes from living to survival so that then we see ourselves through the season. Then we can then resume living life the way we used to live. Therefore, what I'm saying is at this time, you must sit down and plan for your money. You must sit down and ask yourself, what are the essentials that I need to survive through this season? And then as you go out to shop, go out to shop knowing that you have developed a budget for the things that you need in this season. This is not the season to entertain impulse buying. This is not the season to just go to a supermarket, pick a trolley and begin picking things. This is a season to go to a supermarket knowing exactly what you want to pick, and that is exactly what will help push you through this season. So it's a season to be conservative. I must also mention that much as the season is special, it's important to remember that we also have to save. We save for a rainy day. We also save because we don't know how long the situation might go.
Yeah, sure.
Even if you are on 100% pay, if the situation stays longer with us, you never know, your employer could change terms tomorrow, depending on how the business will be affected. They might decide to reduce your pay from 100 to 50% in the next 1 or so months. So if that time comes, you need to also have a fallback plan, something that can push you for a few more days if the worst is to happen.
Wow. Well, thank you so much, Roy, for enlightening us and telling us how we can work our finances during this pandemic to make sure that at least tomorrow is a better day and eliminating all the debts and loans.
Thank you so much for having me. Stay safe, keep sanitizing, keep washing hands.
Yes.
Until we emerge victorious at the end of this.
Thank you so much, and we wish for all the best and all the Kenyans. We will go back to normal for sure. Asante sana and have a beautiful evening.
You too, thank you.
Well, his name is Roy Okonji, and he said it's all about budgeting right now and discipline. Do not run away from that call from your lender. It's only courteous that you pick up the call and explain your situation. And you know what? He said something interesting. These people just want to know how you will pay. They don't really want your money right now because they understand. But explaining how you will clear that debt, that will really take us to another level.
And that's very, very key.
Well, we have Remy Kipchirchir, and you are saying you're tuned into This Is the Day. Our borders should be protected, and we need to contain the spread of the coronavirus pandemic. It is very important we continue to fight this disease in all fronts, in all the borders. That's concerning the question that we asked earlier. Do you think it is right for the president to reconsider his decision to close down the Kenya-Tanzania border and even the Kenya-Somali border, resulting from what is happening right now with the two leadership that is? And we have Pastor Kantai all the way from Lodwar, and he said, I just want to concur with what the president has said and done. Every government has the responsibility and ways of protecting her own citizens, whether neighboring countries accept them or not. Their main interest as of now is, we can see from our president, is to prioritize the interest of its people. Kesi baadaye. I like that. Tutajibu kesi baadaye.
You know, Pastor Kantai, the first time I went to Lodwar is in Turkana, right? You know, I'd never been to that frontier, so I always thought that, you know, the pictures that I see of people from Turkana, you know, semi-dressed people, I thought that was what I was going to get. When I landed at Lodwar, I was shocked. There's electricity. I mean, the place is well taken. And so, Pastor Kantai, thank you very much.
We are live on Family TV, also live on Family Radio. And Lynette just texted in and said, hi, as we pick the call from the lenders, it would be great for them to be courteous. We can pick the calls at times and it gets you twice as depressed. Let's get empathy from them as we discuss repayment. Have a great evening.
Tulipe
deni kesi baadaye. Well, thank you so much, Lynette, for tuning in. And Remy is saying it is true, men are the ones who are passing away because of the coronavirus pandemic as compared to women. I heard that the BBC did a survey that analyzed that women have a strong immune system, and I will leave it at that. Unless maybe Sarah Otieno tells us if that is the case. Well, we'll do research on that. And I remember I told you that JAM 316 is working on how to elaborate that, and we will surely tell you on the exact dates tomorrow. So make sure that you tune into JAM 316. And he also goes ahead and says, hence, I do agree as men, we need to sanitize and wash our hands regularly as much as possible. And I remember the guy, Dennis from Juja, who is initially from Muranga, said that women have handbags. That is why they can carry sanitizers. They can carry
sanitizers, for real. I wish there was one that you can put in your wallet. Anyway, traders from Voi Town are complaining because it's now things have gone back to normal. To them, it's business as usual. There are quite a number of them that do not wear a mask as they go about their daily routine. They also noted that there are some truck drivers who carry unauthorized passengers to Voi Town from different parts of the country.
Wauzaji wetu wa maji hapa Caltex na Kasarani hapo hivyo. Unakuta hawana barakoa, hawana gloves. Tunaomba Mr. President awasaidie pia wapate nini? Barakoa na gloves.
Yaliyotoka Tanzania, yale pia yaliyotoka pia sehemu za Uganda, wanabeba abiria ndani, na abiria wenyewe pia hao wengi wanashikia Voi, wengine wanaelekea Mombasa. Hawa watu wenyewe wanatuletea corona sehemu ya kwetu huku. Waangalia abiria ambao wanapandishwa malori hapo juu highway hapo, ni abiria sampuli gani? Mimi chenye ninachojua, abiria anapanda lori, huyo abiria lazima akuwe ni daktari ama akuwe ni polisi, ndio wanatakana kupanda malori.
Well, we were talking earlier and we talked about how this pandemic has made people know the Swahili name of masks.
Barakoa.
Barakoa.
You know, the first time I heard it, I thought, who is that?
All right. After being advised to avoid direct contact with senior citizens to protect them from the coronavirus infection, families in the UK have devised an ingenious way of hugging their aged parents and grandparents. So they have developed a gown from personal protective equipment, which is then hung on the clothing line, and two parties can hug without the danger of infecting each other. Very interesting.
But you've got to put your arms through the bottom one. Yeah? So your arms are through the bottom one. Okay? My arms go through the top one. And amazing. How amazing is this? I've only designed with you in mind. But I can give you a hug and I'm not touching you. But it feels like I am touching you.
Okay. Put your arms through the slots. All right. Oh my goodness. Oh, I love you. I love you. Oh, this is so good. My turn. Can you come in? Oh, this. Okay, that's too much. Okay. Come on, baby doll. Oh, my girls. Where's the other one? Oh, there you are. Oh.
Interesting time, and we say tough times call for tough measures. True. But that's a very interesting one. So you can get to hug your grandparents without infecting them. Really interesting.
I agree. Well, we have a comment from Pastor Kantai. Remember, I'd talked about going to Lodwar and getting shocked that people actually wear clothes and you have electricity, there's power there.
Yeah.
So he's saying, Aki nyinyi watu, wish COVID-19 was not there.
Yeah.
I could have hosted you for some days and I take you around Lodwar town and the neighboring areas. Ujione mwenyewe. God's grace is sufficient here in County 023.
Well, let's just postpone this. After COVID, surely, and we pray that God will take us through this period vizuri. We pray that, yes, we're going to have an amazing time. Timon Rateng, you're saying, wow, that hugging thing is creative and amazing. Thank you so much for tuning in all the way from Kisumu. Well, Fred, before we close up and wrap up this show, yesterday we received a comment from a listener in Nakuru, and they were saying that, hey, yesterday you did a story. It's actually today. Yesterday you did a story about the pastor from Thika and you didn't finish it. And we're asking ourselves, we finished the story. What really happened? So you do not have an excuse of missing out on any story that we do. This is because you can always go back and listen to that story over and over again if it inspires you, if you want to forward it to the next person. That has been made possible. How? This is how. There is the Family Media app. Just go to your Google Play Store or even the App Store. Yes, what to our iPhone, we have you covered. You can go to your Apple Store and download the Family Media application. Always on the go. You listen to all your favorite programs, all the favorite music that you love. That is where you can find them, despite where you are. As they say, on the go. You can also listen to This Is the Day. Yay. Kurudia na kurudia again. On the go. All that is found on your App Store and the Google Play Store if you're using the Android services. Go there and download that application because I want to see you here all the other time. But for now, we have to wrap this up. My name is Sarah Otieno. Thank you so much for tuning in today.
I'm Frederick Njiri.
For this and more of our shows, log on to www.familymediaonline.com to enjoy a wide variety of programs from current affairs to testimonials and features, pastoral and inspirational shows, kids entertainment, and so much more. Also stream live on www.familymedia.tv.